The gunshot cracked through the mountain air like thunder, sending a flock of startled birds into the sky as Vanessa Whitfield's wagon careened toward the edge of Eagle Pass. She yanked desperately on the reins, but the terrified horses, spooked by the bandits' gunfire, pulled harder toward the precipice as the wooden wheels skidded on loose gravel. "Stop, please stop." She screamed, her honey blonde hair whipping across her face as the wagon hit a boulder and tilted precariously. The last thing Vanessa remembered was the sickening sensation of falling, the horse's panicked whinnies, and the splintering crash of wood before darkness claimed her. Colorado Territory, 1871, was no place for a woman alone, but Vanessa had little choice after her father's death left her with nothing but debts and a letter from her mother's sister in Denver. The journey west from Boston had been arduous enough before the attack. Now, as consciousness slowly returned, she became aware of a gentle hand on her forehead and the scent of leather, pine, and something earthy. "Easy now, miss. Don't try to move too quick." Vanessa's eyelids fluttered open to find herself staring into the most startling blue eyes she'd ever seen, set in a sun-bronzed face beneath a worn leather hat. The man kneeling beside her had broad shoulders and a strong jaw darkened with stubble. He looked to be in his early 30s, with laugh lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested a gentle nature despite his rugged appearance. "My wagon," she whispered, attempting to sit up only to be halted by a sharp pain in her side. "The wagon crashed in the pass," the cowboy said softly, easing her back down onto what she now realized was his bedroll. "You're alive, that's what matters. The bandits, long gone, probably thought you went over the cliff with your belongings." He offered her a canteen. "I'm Quinn Quincy." "Most folks just call me Quinn." "Vanessa Whitfield," she replied, taking a small sip of water. "How did you find me?" Quinn settled back on his heels. "I was tracking those outlaws. They've been hitting travelers in these parts for weeks, saw the dust from the crash and heard the commotion." His eyes grew solemn. "Your horses didn't make it, I'm afraid, but I managed to salvage some of your things before the rest of the wagon went over the edge." Vanessa closed her eyes, fighting tears. Everything she owned had been in that wagon: her clothes, her mother's locket, her father's pocket watch, and what little money she had left for starting a new life. "Where were you headed?" Quinn asked, disrupting her thoughts. "Denver. My Aunt Josephine lives there." "I was going to stay with her until I could find suitable employment." Quinn nodded. "Denver's still a good 4 days' ride from here. My cabin's about half a day back. We can rest there, then I'll take you to Denver." "I couldn't possibly impose, Miss Whitfield. There's miles of wilderness between here and civilization, not to mention those bandits are still out there. A lady traveling alone is just asking for trouble." Vanessa wanted to protest, but knew he was right. Besides, her ribs ached fiercely, and she suspected she couldn't travel far without assistance. "Thank you, Mr. Quincy. I'll find a way to repay your kindness." A small smile lifted the corner of his mouth. "Quinn, and no need for repayment. My ma raised me right." He helped her to her feet, and Vanessa was suddenly aware of how tall he was, standing nearly a foot above her 5 feet 4 inches. She swayed slightly, and his strong hands steadied her. "Easy now. Let's get you on Domino." He gestured to a magnificent black stallion grazing nearby. "He's gentle enough, despite his size." Quinn packed up the few possessions he'd managed to save: a small carpet bag with some of her clothes, a worn Bible, and a daguerreotype of her parents before helping her mount. The pain in her ribs made her gasp. "I think they're just bruised, not broken," he said, concern evident in his eyes. "I've got some salve at the cabin that'll help." He swung up behind her, his chest warm against her back as he reached around to take the reins. Vanessa stiffened, unused to such proximity with a man. In Boston, such an arrangement would have been scandalous, but here in the wilderness, propriety seemed a distant concern compared to survival. "Relax," Quinn said softly near her ear. "I won't bite." They rode in silence for a time, the rhythmic sway of the horse almost hypnotic. Vanessa found herself leaning back against Quinn's solid frame as exhaustion overtook her. "My aunt doesn't know I'm coming," she admitted quietly. "Father died 3 months ago, consumption. The creditors took everything except what I could pack in the wagon." Quinn didn't respond immediately, but his arm seemed to tighten slightly around her. "I'm sorry about your father. It's not easy losing family." Something in his tone suggested personal experience, but Vanessa didn't press. They continued riding as the sun began its descent behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Quinn's cabin appeared as the last light faded, a sturdy structure of logs and stone nestled against a hillside, with smoke curling from the chimney. "You left a fire burning?" Vanessa asked, suddenly alarmed. Quinn chuckled. "No, that means my partner's home. Samuel keeps things running when I'm out tracking." As they approached, the cabin door swung open and an older man with a silver beard stepped out, rifle ready until he recognized Quinn. "About time you showed up." "Was beginning to think those Hadley boys finally got the better of you." His eyes settled on Vanessa. "I see you found trouble of a different sort. Samuel, this is Miss Vanessa Whitfield. Her wagon was attacked by the Hadleys at Eagle Pass." "Miss Whitfield, this is Samuel Thornton, the ornery old coot who taught me everything I know about tracking." Samuel lowered his rifle and tipped his hat. "Madam, sorry for your misfortune, but you're in good hands with Quinn here. Best tracker in Colorado territory, though I'll deny saying it if he gets too prideful." Quinn helped Vanessa dismount, catching her when her legs threatened to buckle. "Let's get you inside. Samuel makes a mean rabbit stew." The cabin was simple but comfortable, with a large stone fireplace, a wooden table with chairs, and 2 doors leading to what Vanessa assumed were bedrooms. The warmth enveloped her immediately, and she realized how cold she'd grown on the ride. "You'll take my room," Quinn said, guiding her to one of the doors. "I'll bunk with Samuel." "I couldn't possibly." "You could and you will," Samuel interrupted, already ladling stew into bowls. "Quinn's too stubborn to argue with, and besides, it's the proper thing." Too exhausted to protest further, Vanessa allowed Quinn to show her to his room, a modest space with a bed covered in a handmade quilt, a small dresser, and a window overlooking the mountains. "There's water in the pitcher if you'd like to wash up," he said, placing her carpetbag on the bed. "Come out for supper when you're ready. No rush." After he left, Vanessa sank onto the edge of the bed, finally allowing the tears she'd been holding back to fall. Everything she'd planned, everything she'd hoped for seemed to be slipping away. But she was alive, as the cowboy had said. That had to count for something. She washed her face and hands, wincing at the array of bruises becoming visible on her pale skin. After changing into the only clean dress, she had left a simple blue cotton that had seen better days, she rejoined the men in the main room. Conversation over dinner was mostly between Quinn and Samuel, discussing the Hadley gang and their recent activities. Vanessa learned that Quinn had been a scout for the Union Army during the war before turning to bounty hunting. Samuel, a former trapper, had lost his leg below the knee to a grizzly bear some years back and now maintained the cabin and tanned hides while Quinn did the tracking. "These Hadleys," Vanessa ventured during a lull in conversation. "They've been robbing travelers often," Quinn nodded grimly. "3 in the last month. You're the first survivor we know of." The implication hung heavy in the air. Vanessa shivered despite the warm fire. "The marshal in Denver's offering a reward for them," Samuel added. "Quinn's been tracking them for weeks, but they're slippery as eels." "And now they have what little money I had left," Vanessa said softly. Quinn's jaw tightened. "I'll get them, Miss Whitfield, and when I do, I'll see about recovering what's yours. Please call me Vanessa, and I wouldn't want you risking your life for a few dollars and some trinkets." "It's not just about your belongings," Quinn replied. "Those men need to be stopped before they hurt someone else." After dinner, Samuel produced a bottle of whiskey, pouring small measures for himself and Quinn. He offered some to Vanessa, who hesitated before accepting. "Medicinal purposes," Samuel winked. "Help with the pain and get you sleeping." The whiskey burned going down but spread a pleasant warmth through her limbs. Quinn disappeared briefly and returned with a small jar. "For your ribs," he explained. "It's a mixture of comfrey and arnica." Samuel's recipe. "Works better than anything those fancy doctors prescribe," the older man affirmed with pride. Vanessa thanked them, taking the jar. Soon after, exhaustion overwhelmed her, and she excused herself to bed. As she lay beneath Quinn's quilt, inhaling the faint scent of pine and leather that seemed to be uniquely his. She found herself wondering about the quiet, intense cowboy who had saved her life. The next morning brought fresh pain as her muscles stiffened. But after applying more of Samuel's salve, Vanessa felt well enough to insist on helping with breakfast. Samuel showed her where everything was kept in the small kitchen area, and soon the cabin was filled with the aroma of coffee and frying bacon. Quinn entered from outside, where he'd been tending the horses. He stopped short at the sight of Vanessa at the stove, her blonde hair loosely braided over one shoulder. "You shouldn't be up," he said, though his tone lacked conviction as he hung his hat on a peg by the door. "Nonsense," she replied. "I'm perfectly capable of cooking breakfast." "It's the least I can do for your hospitality." Samuel shot Quinn an amused glance. "Don't bother arguing with a woman when she's made up her mind. Another lesson I taught you that didn't take." Quinn's lips twitched. "I recall you saying the same about mules." "Similar principles apply," Samuel quipped. Earning a small laugh from Vanessa over breakfast, Quinn explained that they would need to wait a day or two before traveling to Denver. "Those ribs need time to heal, and I want to make sure the Hadleys have moved on from the area." "I don't want to delay you from your work," Vanessa protested. "My work is finding the Hadleys," Quinn replied. "And you're the first person to get a good look at them and survive. I'd appreciate anything you can tell me about them." Vanessa described the three men who had attacked her Wagon brothers by their similar features. The leader was tall with a jagged scar across his cheek. The youngest couldn't have been more than 20, with wild eyes that had frightened her most of all. "That's them all right," Samuel confirmed. "Illy Marcus and young Jebediah Hadley, mean as snakes, all three." "I should have been more careful," Vanessa said quietly. "The stagecoach driver in the last town warned me about traveling alone, but I couldn't afford passage." Quinn reached across the table, briefly touching her hand. "This isn't your fault. The Hadleys prey on those they see as vulnerable, but they're getting bolder, and that makes them dangerous." After breakfast, while Samuel went to check his traps, Quinn showed Vanessa around the property. The cabin sat on several acres of land with a small stream running nearby. A corral held 3 horses: Quinn's Domino, Samuel's dun mare, and a spirited chestnut that Quinn was training. "This is beautiful country," Vanessa remarked, gazing at the mountains rising majestically in the distance. "It is," Quinn agreed. "Gets in your blood after a while. I can't imagine living anywhere else now." "Have you always lived in Colorado?" Quinn leaned against the corral fence. "No, grew up in Missouri, came west after the war looking for something different." He glanced at her. "What about you? Besides your aunt, what's waiting for you in Denver?" "I'm not entirely sure," Vanessa admitted. "I hope to find work as a teacher, perhaps. I was educated at a ladies' seminary in Boston." "A proper Eastern lady," Quinn observed without mockery. "Denver might be a shock." "It's growing fast, but it's still rough around the edges." "I'm tougher than I look, Mr. Quincy." His blue eyes assessed her thoughtfully. "I'm starting to see that, Miss Whitfield." Over the next 2 days, Vanessa fell into the rhythm of life at the cabin. Despite her injuries, she insisted on helping with chores, learning from Samuel how to make sourdough bread and mend clothing. Quinn often disappeared for hours, tracking the Hadleys' movements in the surrounding area. In the evenings, they gathered by the fire. Samuel told stories of his trapping days, and occasionally Quinn would share tales of the strange and beautiful things he'd seen in his travels. Vanessa found herself drawn to the quiet cowboy, whose gentle manner with animals and respectful treatment of her belied his dangerous profession. On the 3rd morning, Vanessa awoke to hushed voices. Wrapping Quinn's quilt around her shoulders, she crept to the bedroom door and listened. "They've doubled back," Quinn was saying. "Ambushed a mail coach yesterday near Thompson Creek. 2 dead. Damn those boys to hell," Samuel growled. "Marshal Blackstone needs to call in the army at this rate. He's formed a posse. They're heading up from Denver, should be here by tomorrow. And the girl, you still planning to take her to Denver today?" There was a pause before Quinn answered. "It's too dangerous now. The Hadleys know these mountains better than the posse. I won't risk her safety. She won't be happy about the delay." "Better unhappy than dead," Quinn replied flatly. Vanessa pushed the door open. Both men turned, surprised to find her standing there. "How long have you been listening?" Quinn asked, rising from his chair. Long enough, Vanessa answered, chin lifted. And I'm not a child to be protected from difficult truths, Mr. Quincy, Samuel chuckled. Told you she was a spirited one. Quinn ran a hand through his dark hair. The Hadleys are still in the area and they're getting more violent. It's not safe to travel to Denver right now. I understand, Vanessa said, surprising them both. I don't wish to endanger either of you further. Perhaps when the posse arrives. No, Quinn interrupted firmly. The posse will be tracking the Hadleys into rough country. It's no place for you. Then what do you suggest? That I stay here indefinitely? Quinn and Samuel exchanged glances. Just until we're sure the route to Denver is safe, Quinn said. A week, maybe 2. Vanessa considered her options, which were admittedly few. Very well, but I insist on earning my keep while I'm here, Samuel grinned. We won't argue with that. Quinn's cooking could kill a man faster than any outlaw's bullet. Despite the grim news about the Hadleys, the day passed pleasantly. Vanessa discovered Quinn was a skilled woodworker when she found him carving a small figurine on the porch. It's lovely, she commented, admiring the half-finished horse emerging from the piece of pine. My father taught me, Quinn said, his knife moving steadily over the wood. Said idle hands were the devil's workshop, so he made sure mine were never idle. What happened to your family? Vanessa ventured, settling on the porch step beside him. Quinn's hands stilled momentarily. Fever took my mother and sisters when I was 14. Father lasted until I was 17, then his heart gave out one winter morning. He resumed carving. I joined the army soon after, seemed the right thing to do at the time. I'm sorry, Vanessa said softly. Losing family is a special kind of pain. Quinn nodded, his blue eyes meeting hers briefly. Your father, was he ill long? Almost a year. I nursed him myself. She looked down at her hands, remembering the long nights and the gradual fading of a once vibrant man. He was never the same after Mother passed 6 years ago. I think part of him died with her. They must have loved each other very much. They did. I always hoped to find a love like theirs someday. Vanessa blushed, realizing how forward that sounded. Forgive me, that was inappropriate conversation. Quinn's expression softened. No need for apologies, it's a worthy thing to hope for. After a moment, he handed her the half-carved horse. Here, you finish it. Oh, I don't know how. I'll teach you, he said simply, placing the knife in her hand and positioning his own over hers to guide the blade. Gentle but firm. Let the wood tell you what it wants to be. The warmth of his hand over hers sent an unexpected thrill through Vanessa. His proximity, the scent of pine and leather that she now associated so strongly with him, made it difficult to concentrate on the carving. When she finally looked up, she found his eyes on her face, something unreadable in their blue depths. The moment was broken by Samuel's approach. Storm's coming, he announced, nodding at the darkening sky to the west. Better secure everything. Quinn reluctantly pulled his hand away. We'll continue the lesson another time. The storm hit with unexpected ferocity, lashing the cabin with rain and wind that howled through the mountain passes like a living thing. Thunder boomed overhead, and lightning split the sky in jagged streaks. Vanessa had never experienced such wild weather and found herself jumping at each thunderclap. Mountain storms are something else, aren't they? Samuel observed, stoking the fire higher as rain leaked through one corner of the roof. Will it pass quickly? Vanessa asked, helping Quinn place buckets under the leaks. Hard to say. Could be hours, could be days, Quinn replied, moving to secure a shutter that was banging in the wind. As night fell, the storm showed no signs of abating. Samuel retired early, claiming his old bones needed rest, but Vanessa suspected he was giving her and Quinn privacy. The thought both alarmed and excited her. They sat by the fire, the storm raging outside. Quinn had produced a bottle of good whiskey, pouring small measures for them both. To shelter from storms, he toasted, touching his glass to hers. Vanessa sipped the amber liquid, savoring the warmth it spread through her. I've been thinking about what happens when I reach Denver, she said after a while. Oh, Quinn set his glass down, giving her his full attention. I don't even know if my aunt will welcome me. We haven't corresponded in years. She traced the rim of her glass. And even if she does, what kind of life will I have there? An unmarried woman with no prospects, dependent on relatives' charity. You said you wanted to teach. Yes, but I have no references, no connections. In Boston, those things matter greatly. Quinn leaned forward, firelight dancing across his features. Denver isn't Boston, Vanessa. It's growing fast, full of people making new starts. They need educated people, especially women who can teach their children. It was the first time he'd used her given name, and Vanessa found she liked the way it sounded in his deep voice. Perhaps you're right, she conceded. I suppose I'm just afraid. Of what? Of failing. Of finding that I'm not as capable as I believed. She looked down. Father always handled everything. I've never truly been on my own. Quinn was quiet for a long moment. When my father died, I felt like I was drowning. Every decision seemed impossible. He refilled their glasses. But you learn. You make mistakes, you pick yourself up, you keep going. Is that what you did? Keep going, a shadow crossed his face. Not at first. I ran away to war, thinking it would make me a man. Instead, it nearly destroyed me. He stared into the fire. After Shiloh, I wasn't sure I wanted to live anymore. Saw too many good men die for reasons I couldn't understand. Vanessa's heart ached for the pain she heard in his voice. Without thinking, she reached out, placing her hand over his. But you survived. You built this life. Quinn's fingers entwined with hers, warm and strong. Samuel saved me, truth be told, found me half dead in a Denver saloon, drinking myself to oblivion. Brought me out here, taught me to track, to live in the wilderness. His eyes met hers. Sometimes we need someone to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. I believe you're a good man, Quinn, Vanessa said softly. The air between them seemed to change, charged with something Vanessa couldn't name but felt in every fiber of her being. Quinn's eyes dropped to her lips, and for a breathless moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he gently squeezed her hand before releasing it. It's late. We should get some rest. Vanessa nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. As she rose to go to her room, Quinn spoke again. Vanessa, whatever you decide in Denver, you'll succeed. I believe that. His words followed her into sleep, more comforting than she could have imagined. The storm continued through the night and into the next day, trapping them indoors. Vanessa used the time to mend clothing for both men, while Samuel taught her to play checkers and Quinn worked on saddle repairs. By evening, a comfortable familiarity had developed between them, as if Vanessa had always been part of their small household. How did you two meet? She asked over dinner, curious about the unlikely friendship between the gruff older man and the quiet cowboy. Samuel chuckled. Found this one face down in a puddle of his own sick outside a Denver saloon. Hadn't eaten in days from the look of him. Quinn shook his head ruefully. Samuel exaggerates. It wasn't a puddle. Near enough, Samuel retorted. Anyway, I recognized the look in his eyes, same one I had after my Isabel passed. Figured he needed purpose more than sympathy. So you brought him here, Vanessa prompted, dragged him more like, Samuel corrected. But he's proven useful. Good with horses, decent shot, and he can track a mouse across bare rock. Quinn smiled faintly. High praise indeed. And the bounty hunting? Vanessa inquired. That came later, Quinn explained. Started with helping the local ranchers find rustlers. Word got around, and the marshal began asking for help with more difficult cases. Quinn's got a reputation now, Samuel added proudly. They call him the Ghost because he can track anyone, but no one ever sees him coming. Vanessa studied Quinn with new eyes, trying to reconcile the gentle man who carved horses and spoke softly with someone dangerous enough to earn such a nickname. I don't much care for the name, Quinn admitted, looking uncomfortable. Just doing a job that needs doing. A job that puts you in constant danger, Vanessa observed. Quinn met her gaze steadily. All life has risk, Vanessa. The question is whether the risk serves something worthwhile. The conversation turned to lighter topics, but Vanessa found herself watching Quinn, seeing new depths to the man who had saved her life. When Samuel retired for the evening, leaving them alone by the fire once more, an easy silence settled between them. Will you tell me about Boston? Quinn asked eventually. Vanessa smiled, surprised by his interest. What would you like to know? Everything. What it looks like, what you did there, what you miss about it. So she told him about the cobblestone streets and grand buildings, about attending lectures and concerts, about walking in the public garden in spring when the flowers bloomed. Quinn listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed a keen intelligence and curiosity about the world beyond the mountains. "It sounds beautiful," he said when she finished. "Different from anything I've known." "It is beautiful," Vanessa acknowledged, "but constrained in many ways. There are so many rules, so many expectations for how one should behave, especially women." She gazed into the fire. "Out here, there's a freedom I never imagined. It's terrifying and exhilarating all at once." "Freedom comes with its own price," Quinn observed. "Out here, mistakes can kill you." "Is that why you stay? For the freedom?" Quinn considered her question. "Partly. But mostly because out here, a man is judged by his actions, not his name or his wealth or who his father was." He looked at her with those penetrating blue eyes. "Why did you really leave Boston, Vanessa? You could have found employment there, even after your father's death." Vanessa tensed. No one had asked her that question so directly before. "I told you the creditors would have taken your father's assets, yes, but a well-educated woman from a good family could have found a position as a governess or companion, even in reduced circumstances." She looked away, unnerved by his perceptiveness. "There was a situation. A man my father had wished me to marry. After father's death, he became quite insistent, despite my refusals." Quinn's expression darkened. "Did he harm you?" "No, nothing like that. But he had influence in Boston society, and after I rejected his proposal a final time, I found doors closing to me everywhere I turned." Vanessa's fingers twisted in her skirt. "No one would hire me as a teacher or governess. Invitations ceased. Former friends crossed the street to avoid me." "So you ran?" "I preferred to think of it as making a strategic retreat," Vanessa replied with a small smile. Denver seemed far enough away from his reach. Quinn was quiet for a moment. "This man, do you think he'll pursue you, Charles?" "No, his pride was wounded more than his heart. By now, he's likely found another suitable candidate to be Mrs. Charles Winthrop, Roman 3. Still, it took courage to leave everything familiar behind." Vanessa laughed softly. "Or desperation. Sometimes they look remarkably similar." Quinn smiled, and Vanessa felt that now familiar flutter in her chest. As the hour grew late, neither seemed inclined to end their conversation. They spoke of books they'd read, places they'd seen, dreams they'd harbored. Quinn described the grandeur of the untamed West, painting such vivid pictures with his words that Vanessa could almost see the vast prairies and towering mountains he'd traversed. When she finally retired to bed, Vanessa realized with some surprise that for the first time since her father's death, she had gone an entire day without feeling the weight of grief and uncertainty pressing down on her. Somehow, in this rustic cabin with two virtual strangers, she had found a measure of peace. The storm blew itself out overnight, and Vanessa awoke to brilliant sunshine streaming through the window. She dressed quickly and went outside, eager to feel the fresh air after being confined indoors. The world seemed washed clean, every leaf and blade of grass glistening with raindrops. She found Quinn at the corral, checking the horse's hooves for stones. He straightened when he saw her, pushing his hat back, mourning. "Sleep well, better than I have in months," she admitted. "The storm passing seems like a good omen." "It does at that," he agreed, watching her with an intensity that made her cheeks warm. "Samuel's gone to check his trap line. Won't be back until evening." Something in his tone made Vanessa's pulse quicken. "What did you have planned for today?" "Thought you might like to see a bit more of the country. There's a spot not far from here, prettiest view in Colorado, if you ask me." "I'd like that very much." They rode out after breakfast, Vanessa on Samuel's gentle mare. Quinn led them along a narrow trail that wound higher into the mountains, pointing out landmarks and sharing the history of the area. Vanessa found herself laughing more than she had in years, delighting in Quinn's dry humor and the spectacular scenery. By midday, they reached a high meadow carpeted with wildflowers. Beyond it, the land fell away dramatically, revealing a panoramic vista of mountains, forests, and distant plains that took Vanessa's breath away. "Oh, Quinn," she gasped, dismounting with his help. "It's magnificent." Pride shone in his eyes as he surveyed the view. "First time I saw this, I knew I'd found home." They spread a blanket on the grass, and Quinn produced a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and dried fruit from his saddlebag. As they ate, Vanessa found her gaze repeatedly drawn to his strong hands, remembering how they had felt guiding hers during the carving lesson. "Quinn," she began hesitantly, "may I ask you something personal? You can ask." "I might not answer," he replied, but his smile softened his words. "Have you ever been married?" Quinn looked surprised by the question. "No, came close once before the war. Her name was Rebecca. Her father owned the neighboring farm." His eyes grew distant with memory. "When I came back from Shiloh, I wasn't the same man who'd left. She deserved better than the broken shell I'd become." "What happened to her?" "Married a shopkeeper from St. Louis. Has 3 children now, I hear." He shrugged, but Vanessa sensed the old wound beneath his casual tone. "You still think of her?" "Sometimes. Not in a longing way more." "Grateful that she found happiness." He plucked a wildflower, twirling it between his fingers. "What about you? Besides the persistent Mr. Winthrop, were there others?" Vanessa laughed softly. "A few gentlemen callers, nothing serious. Father was particular about who was suitable." "And what did you think was suitable?" The directness of his gaze made her pulse skip. "Someone kind, honest, a man who saw me as a partner, not a possession." She met his eyes. "I think I would rather be alone than with someone who didn't value my mind as well as my appearance." "A rare perspective," Quinn observed. "Most women I've known are more concerned with security than happiness." "Perhaps because they've never had the luxury of considering happiness," Vanessa suggested. "But having lost everything once, I've learned that material security can disappear in an instant. Character endures." Quinn's eyes lingered on her face, and Vanessa felt herself blushing under his scrutiny. "You're an extraordinary woman, Vanessa Whitfield." Before she could respond, the distant crack of gunfire shattered the peaceful moment. Quinn was on his feet instantly, hand on his holstered revolver as he scanned the horizon. "Get behind me," he ordered, all traces of softness gone from his voice. More shots rang out closer now. Quinn pulled Vanessa to the cover of nearby rocks, drawing his weapon. "The horses," Vanessa whispered, seeing their mounts shifting nervously. "Too exposed," Quinn muttered. "We need to stay put until I know what we're dealing with." Hoofbeats approached, and Quinn positioned himself to shield Vanessa with his body. She clutched his arm, heart pounding as 5 riders appeared at the edge of the meadow. "It's the posse," Quinn said with palpable relief, holstering his weapon and standing. "Marshal Blackstone." He called out, waving. The leader of the group, a weathered man with a silver star pinned to his vest, rode toward them. "Quinn, thought we might find you up here." His eyes shifted to Vanessa. "Madam, Marshal, this is Miss Vanessa Whitfield. Her wagon was attacked by the Hadleys 3 days back." Quinn quickly explained the situation while the marshal and his men dismounted. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Whitfield, though sorry for the circumstances," Marshal Blackstone said, tipping his hat. "We've been tracking those Hadley boys since they hit the mail coach. Got close enough to exchange fire about an hour ago before they split up." "Split up," Quinn frowned. "That's new, they usually stick together. Illy's injured, we think, saw blood on his trail. The younger 2 headed east, but Illy's moving north." The marshal glanced around the meadow. "We were hoping you'd join the hunt, Quinn. No one tracks like you." Quinn's eyes met Vanessa's, conflict evident in their blue depths. "I need to get Miss Whitfield safely to Denver." "I can detail one of my men to escort her," Blackstone offered. "No," Quinn said firmly. "I gave my word I'd see her to Denver myself." The marshal looked between them, understanding dawning on his weathered face. "Well, the offer stands if you change your mind. We'll be moving on, want to cover more ground before nightfall." After the posse departed, Quinn remained tense, scanning the surrounding forest with a vigilance that made Vanessa nervous. "Should we return to the cabin?" she asked. Quinn nodded. "If Illy Hadley's wounded and in these mountains, he's even more dangerous, like a cornered wolf." They packed quickly, and Quinn insisted Vanessa ride double with him on Domino, leaving Samuel's mare to follow on a lead. The return journey was made in watchful silence, Quinn's body taut with alertness as they descended through the forest. Back at the cabin, they found Samuel had returned early, alerted by the sound of gunfire in the distance. He'd been preparing to come looking for them when they arrived. "Posse has got the Hadleys on the run," Quinn explained, helping Vanessa dismount. "But they've separated, which worries me." Samuel nodded grimly. "Wounded animals, the most dangerous kind. That evening, Quinn insisted on taking first watch while Samuel and Vanessa slept. Despite her exhaustion, Vanessa found sleep elusive. The day had been a whirlwind of emotions, the joy of the meadow, the connection she'd felt growing with Quinn, and now the return of fear as the Hadleys' threat loomed once more. Unable to rest, she wrapped Quinn's quilt around her shoulders and padded silently into the main room. Quinn sat by the window, rifle across his knees, his profile limned by moonlight. He turned at her approach, expression softening when he saw her. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. Vanessa shook her head. "Too much on my mind." "Come sit," he invited, gesturing to the chair beside him. Company makes the watch go faster. They sat in comfortable silence for a time, the only sounds the occasional creak of the cabin settling and the soft hooting of an owl outside. "I've been thinking," Vanessa said finally. "About Denver." Quinn's eyes remained on the darkness beyond the window. "What about it? I'm not sure it's where I belong anymore." She studied her hands. "I went there because it seemed the only option, but now, Quinn prompted when she hesitated. "Now I wonder if there might be other possibilities." Vanessa gathered her courage, looking directly at him. "Quinn, I know we've only known each other a short time, but I feel a sudden crash from the rear of the cabin cut her off." Quinn was on his feet instantly, pushing Vanessa behind him as he raised his rifle. "Samuel," he called sharply. No answer came. Instead, the bedroom door was flung open, revealing a tall man with a jagged scar across his cheek, holding a revolver to Samuel's head. Well, the man drawled, blood darkening one side of his shirt. "If it ain't the ghost himself. Drop the rifle, Quinn, or the old man gets a third eye." Quinn slowly lowered his weapon to the floor. "Illy Hadley, you're looking rough." Illy's wild eyes darted to Vanessa. "And the little lady from the wagon survived that tumble, did you? Impressive." His grin was feral. "Must be my lucky day finding you both here." "Let Samuel go," Quinn said evenly. "Your quarrels with me, my quarrels with anyone who gets between me and what I want." Illy jerked Samuel forward. "And right now, I want your horses, your supplies, and whatever cash you've got hidden away." Vanessa could see Samuel's face, pale but determined. The old trapper caught her eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod toward the fireplace. "The money's in a jar behind the fireplace stones," Quinn said, drawing Illy's attention. "Let me get it for you." "Nice try, the lady can get it." Illy gestured with his gun. "Move slow, sweetheart." Vanessa approached the fireplace, mind racing. As she pretended to search among the stones, her hand found the poker lying beside the hearth. In one fluid motion, she grabbed it and swung, striking Illy's arm with all her strength. The outlaw howled in pain, his gun discharging into the ceiling. Samuel drove his elbow backward into Illy's stomach, breaking free of his grasp. Quinn lunged for his rifle as Illy recovered, raising his weapon toward Vanessa. 2 shots rang out simultaneously. Vanessa screamed as Quinn staggered back, blood blooming on his shoulder. But Illy Hadley collapsed to the floor, a bullet hole in his chest, his eyes wide with surprise. Samuel stood over him, Quinn's revolver smoking in his hand. "Always keep a second gun," the old man said grimly before turning to Quinn. "How bad?" "Clean through," Quinn grunted, pressing his hand to the wound. "Check if he's dead." Samuel confirmed Illy Hadley would trouble them no more, while Vanessa rushed to Quinn's side, helping him to a chair. "We need to stop the bleeding," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady as she tore strips from her petticoat for bandages. "I've had worse," Quinn assured her, though his face was pale with pain. Vanessa worked quickly, cleaning and binding the wound as Samuel kept watch, alert for the possibility of the other Hadley brothers appearing. By dawn, they were confident no further attack was coming, and Illy's body had been removed to the woodshed until it could be taken to town. Quinn insisted he was well enough to travel once Samuel had extracted the bullet and stitched the wound closed. "The posse needs to know Illy's dead," he explained, "and you still need to get to Denver." "You're in no condition to ride," Vanessa protested. "I'll manage." His blue eyes held hers. "You were very brave last night, Vanessa." She blushed at his praise. "I was terrified, but I couldn't let him hurt you or Samuel." Quinn's hand covered hers. "What were you going to say?" Before Illy interrupted, Vanessa's heart hammered in her chest. "I was going to say that I've come to care for you, Quinn, more than I should, perhaps, given our short acquaintance." his expression softened. Time doesn't always measure the depth of feeling. He winced as he shifted in his chair. But I have nothing to offer you, Vanessa. No fine house, no secure future, just a cabin in the wilderness and a dangerous profession. I'm not asking for promises, she said softly. I just needed you to know how I feel before we reach Denver and our paths diverge. Quinn studied her face, something resolving in his eyes. Let's get you to Denver. After that, we'll see what paths remain open to us. 2 days later, with Quinn's shoulder healing well, they prepared to depart for Denver. Samuel would stay behind to mind the cabin and ensure the posse received word about Ellie Hadley's death when they returned to the area. As they mounted their horses, Vanessa now on the chestnut mare Quinn had been training, Samuel pulled her aside for a private word. Never seen Quinn look at anyone the way he looks at you, the old man said bluntly. He needs someone with spirit, someone to come home to. I don't know what will happen in Denver, Vanessa admitted. Samuel patted her hand. Just know you've always got a place here should you want it. The journey to Denver took 3 days, during which Quinn and Vanessa grew closer still. They spoke of their hopes and fears, shared memories both painful and sweet, and in the evenings, sitting beside their campfire, Quinn taught Vanessa more about carving. By the time the city came into view, a dusty sprawl of buildings nestled against the mountains, Vanessa felt as if she'd known Quinn all her life. There it is, Quinn said, reining Domino to a halt on a ridge overlooking Denver. Your new beginning. Vanessa gazed at the frontier city, then at the man beside her. It doesn't feel like a beginning anymore, it feels like an ending. Quinn's eyes met hers, intense and questioning. It doesn't have to be. What do you mean? He dismounted, coming to help her down from her horse. His hands lingered at her waist, and Vanessa's breath caught at his proximity. I mean, I love you, Vanessa Whitfield, Quinn said simply. I didn't expect it, and I know it's fast and maybe foolish, but there it is. Joy bloomed in Vanessa's chest. I love you too, Quinn. These past days have shown me what truly matters, and it's not the life I thought I wanted in Denver. What life do you want? He asked, his voice rough with emotion, one with purpose, with freedom. She reached up to touch his face. With you if you'll have me. Quinn's answer was to draw her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke of longing, tenderness, and the promise of tomorrow. When they finally parted, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. Marry me, he whispered. Not right away if you're not ready, but someday. Yes, Vanessa answered without hesitation. Someday very soon. They continued into Denver, where Vanessa's Aunt Josephine welcomed her with open arms and surprising warmth. Quinn stayed in the city for a week, using the time to report to Marshal Blackstone on Ellie Hadley's death and collect the bounty that had been placed on the outlaw. As it happened, the remaining Hadley brothers were captured by the posse 2 days after Quinn and Vanessa arrived in Denver. Among their possessions was Vanessa's mother's locket and her father's pocket watch, which Marshal Blackstone personally returned to her. A wedding present, the marshal said with a knowing smile when he learned of their engagement. Quinn's a good man, one of the best I know. Vanessa spent a month with her aunt, using the time to properly prepare for a life in the mountains. Josephine, a widow who had made her own journey west years before, understood Vanessa's choice better than expected. Love is rare enough in this world, the older woman said. Grab it with both hands when you find it. The wedding took place in Denver that autumn, a simple ceremony attended by Samuel, Josephine, Marshal Blackstone, and a few of Quinn's friends from his bounty hunting days. Vanessa wore a gown of ivory silk that Josephine insisted on purchasing for her, and Quinn looked uncommonly handsome in a new black suit. As they exchanged vows, Vanessa thought back to that terrifying moment when her wagon had careened off the pass, and how close she had come to a very different fate. When Quinn slipped the ring on her finger, a simple gold band that had belonged to his mother, he leaned close and whispered, "You're alive, and that's what matters. Everything else is a gift." After the ceremony, they returned to the cabin, which Samuel had expanded in their absence, adding a proper bedroom for the newlyweds and improving the kitchen area. Quinn surprised Vanessa by announcing he was giving up bounty hunting to focus on horse breeding and training, a safer profession that would keep him closer to home. "I've had my fill of chasing outlaws," he told her as they sat on the porch that first evening as husband and wife. Time to build something lasting. The years that followed brought challenges, as all lives do, but also immeasurable joy. Vanessa established a small school that served the children of nearby homesteaders and ranchers, fulfilling her dream of teaching. Quinn's reputation as a horse trainer grew, bringing a comfortable prosperity to their mountain home. Samuel remained with them, a beloved uncle figure to the two children who eventually joined their family, a boy with his father's blue eyes, and a girl with her mother's golden hair and determined spirit. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Quinn presented Vanessa with a special gift, a beautifully carved chess set he had spent months creating in secret. Each piece told part of their story. The knight resembled Domino, the queen held a tiny book representing Vanessa's love of learning, the king had a miniature hat like Quinn's favorite. "For teaching me that some things are worth the risk," he said as she marveled at the workmanship. "You saved me as surely as I saved you that day in the pass." Vanessa touched his face, now more weathered but no less handsome to her eyes. "We saved each other," she corrected gently, "and we keep doing so every day." As twilight settled over the mountains they both now called home, Vanessa reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought her here: a crashed wagon, a brush with death, and the steady blue eyes of a cowboy who had seen her value when she was at her lowest. Life in the West wasn't always easy, but it was rich with purpose, love, and the breathtaking beauty of the untamed land. When difficulties arose, as they inevitably did, Quinn would often remind her of the words he'd spoken when they first met. "You're alive, that's what matters." And he was right. From that foundation, they had built something precious and enduring: a family, a home, a legacy of love that would outlast them both. What had begun as a tragedy in Eagle Pass had become the greatest blessing of Vanessa's life, proving once again that sometimes the most difficult journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. In their 15th year of marriage, as they watched their children racing across the meadow where they had once shared that pivotal conversation, Quinn slipped his arm around Vanessa's waist and pressed a kiss to her temple. "Any regrets?" he asked, a question he posed occasionally, always with the same teasing smile. And Vanessa answered, as she always did, with absolute certainty: "Not a single one." For she had learned the truth of what matters most in life: not wealth or status or the approval of society, but the courage to follow one's heart, the strength to overcome adversity, and the wisdom to recognize true love when it appears, even in the most unexpected circumstances. The wagon had crashed in the pass, but Vanessa Whitfield Quincy was alive, and that had made all the difference.